Hi, this is Miss Wright, and I'm going to talk about a very small passage in Act 1, just before Romeo goes to the Capulet party. He has a short internal monologue, and it is noteworthy, so let's take a look at it. Okay, he says, I fear too early for my mind misgives, some consequence yet hanging in the stars. Shall bitterly begin his fearful date with this night's revels, and expire the term of a despised life, closed in my breast by some vile forfeit of untimely death. But he that hath the steerage of my course direct my sails. On, lusty gentlemen. Okay, so I've underlined several things here that we need to pay attention. It starts with I fear. So he's telling us about his apprehensions right from the first couple words there. What is he afraid of? He's afraid of going to this party. Says, for my mind misgives. He has doubts, he has misgivings, that some consequence yet hanging in the stars. He acknowledges fate here when he talks about the stars, shall bitterly begin his fearful date with this night's revels, revels are the parties, and expire the term, meaning bring to an end the term of a despised life. He refers to his life as being despised because he's been so unhappy, so depressed up until this point. Closed in my breast by some vile forfeit of untimely death. He sees his death as imminent if he goes to this party. But he that hath the steerage of my course, he who controls my life, my destiny, direct my sail. Why does he talk about a sail? He's on dry land. Shakespeare has now created the metaphor of Romeo as a small boat on high seas, and someone is supposed to bring that boat safely into the harbor. The he can be seen as God. Here in this version, which I took from the MIT website, has he capitalized, which implies God. The version in our text does not have he capitalized, which means it could also be seen as fate. And then he says, on lusty gentlemen. So um, he he has all these doubts, he has all these misgivings, but he goes on to this party anyway. So here are some things to think about. Okay? Here Romeo is responding to Benvolio's comment that they will arrive at the party too late. Benvolio says, look, if we don't hurry up, by the time we're going to get there, it's going to be over. And Romeo says, Romeo thinks perhaps too soon because his mind is troubled about going to the party at all. He fears that fate has something in store for him that will bring about his death. One question I have for you is, does going to this party make him heroic since he believes that he faces death by doing so? Just like a man who's going onto the battlefield, knowing that he might not come back, and we would consider him a hero for facing danger, for facing death and surviving, or not. Is that part of what makes Romeo a tragic hero? Is it because he is willing to face the odds and willing to face death to get what he wants? He talks about a despised life because he has been so unhappy having been rejected by Rosaline. He introduces he that has the steerage of my course. This he can be seen as God or fate, as I said before, but the idea that someone or something else is in control is what is important, that he's acknowledging his smallness and that there is a much greater force at work in his life. He sees himself as a small boat being directed by the greater force. This metaphor will come back 2 more times before the play ends and will reflect the events happening in the play at the time. So the metaphor is going to slightly transform by the end of the play. And this little passage touches on the idea of fate or free will. Is it Romeo's choice to go to the party despite his premonition? Or it is Romeo's choice to go to the party despite his premonition? I personally wouldn't go. If I had a premonition that I was supposed to go somewhere and something bad was going to happen, I wouldn't go. But Romeo is cut from a different cloth, and there's something that he wants there badly enough, and his life is unhappy enough that he's willing to go, even though he has this sense of foreboding. It is an internal monologue that shows his internal conflict. It foreshadows coming events. It builds suspense through dramatic irony because we, the audience, know from the very prologue that something is probably going to happen at this party. He only surmises, he only guesses that something may happen. He only senses it. We all know what's going to happen, so part of us does not want him to go, but like Romeo, we are compelled to continue on with him. And my final thought for this little passage is, there's something special about the nature of tragedy. We become invested in a character, but are ultimately as helpless as the character to change the course of events that will occur. So we march in lockstep towards his or her demise as we do in our own lives, as we proceed towards our own inevitable death. And I wonder if that is part of what makes tragedy so timeless and so compelling. We all know every day that we are marching towards the end of our life. The end could be that particular day, the end could be 40 years later. But that lack of knowing and yet persevering, getting up, going out, meeting life's challenges, it makes the tragedy all the more real and accessible and relatable. You would think it would be one of the most far-fetched parts of literature, but it's not, because in a sense, every one of us faces the possibility of death every day. All right, I hope that wasn't too weird for you. Um, Please remember to annotate your packages, your scripts. Put as much into them as you possibly can. The more you put into it, the more points you get in terms of really responding to the text, paraphrasing, showing your understanding, looking for your literary terms, your syntactical devices, making connections to other works that we've read, and just showing that you've really been very thoughtful in your examination of the text. You get points for every page that you annotate, and I hope you have a good evening. I will see you back in class. Bye-bye.